Welcome to the process. My name is Dr. John Bush. This is my snaps report, part one, weeks 1 to 4. Going to focus on kind of a new aspect for me on consistency of team level snaps. And I'm going to look at scoring by snap for team in their position. Try to set the landscape of each team right now using the first 4 weeks of data. I know this doesn't seem to be traditional way of looking at things, but that's who I am. I think you've got to think about fantasy deeper than shallow views and just quick thumbnail kind of discussion that you'll see on Twitter and a lot of these websites, or they'll just kind of gyrate around. It sounds more like sports radio than it really does statistical, scientific view of things, and that's what I'm doing. I'll have the static images on the science of fantasy football, but this is just my voiceover of this material, again, part one. So, first thing is this is a continuation of me making note of this connection, quote, or I guess question mark. Looking at average player snaps and then average of PPR per snap, kind of a scoring. Number of players that have received snaps on the team, and then yards per game the team has generated in the first 4 weeks. Trying to see what the connection is. I did this a couple of weeks ago and made some notes about this, and I'm not sure I understand it yet, but I'm just following through. So the top, I don't know, what was that? 8 teams, I guess I noted, that had the high average of player snaps: Rams, Philly, Indianapolis, New England, Detroit, Carolina, Houston, and Arizona. And you can see that here. The bottom teams: Chicago, Cincinnati, San Francisco, Buffalo, Raiders, Green Bay, Denver, and the Jets. There are some weak teams up here, and there's some strong teams there, at least by winning records. What I find interesting is look at the counts of players receiving snaps. Very low here, much higher down here. It's almost an inverse, and it is an inverse relationship. And then there's a lot up here that have high yards per game, and a lot down here that are much lower. So there's some inverse relationship here. More players receiving snaps, is the team weaker or has less talented players, or is that what we're talking about? I don't know the answer. And then here's a summary down here at the bottom of this figure. Average player snaps, average of player snaps in the top half and the bottom half, average of the scoring, average of the number of players, and then yards per game. And in the top half, so about the Chargers, Jackson up, so the top 16, the bottom 16 is what we're talking. The top 35.8 average player snaps per player, I guess. Scoring is almost 0.2 points, so a fifth of a point, PPR point per snap. The number of players on average 47, but the yardage 352 per game. If you look at the bottom 16, it's 30, 0.17, 50, and 309. So right away, if you're, we play fantasy, this is about what, 40, what is that, 42, 43 yards difference per game. That is fantasy points. So in fishing on the bottom teams, the average result is you're going to be 42 yards less per team. So there's more action in the top half. And there's lesser players that are doing that scoring. And they're a little bit higher scoring. And they're getting more snaps. So players in the top half are getting more time, scoring more, and producing more yardage as a group. Okay, I know we're not focusing individual teams, but I think there is telling us something about fantasy football that I think has escaped people. Okay, I've never heard of anybody trying to correlate this at all. I'm the first that I can see. Nobody else has done that. And I'll keep tracking this each week. You can follow along. But there's something to be said for that. So you're saying, well, why do we care? Well, if this is predictive, imagine, and we can test this, say early in the season, we test this information. Is it predictive, say, during our playoffs? In other words, can we position ourselves based on early data in trades, waiver wires, these kind of things, add drops, with the top teams versus the bottom teams? Yes, I know you're not with San Francisco. You're not giving away CMC. I got that. But some of the fringe players, should you be investing in the bottom teams? Okay. Is this predictive throughout the season, and is it predictive season to season? In other words, if we looked at 2022, would this be pointing us to stronger drafting information or results? So that's what I'm hoping, obviously, when you do this, is you're trying to figure this out. So anyway, there it is. There's that data. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so I get a little deeper, looking at the team, week 1, 2, 3, 4. This is average PPR scoring per snap. Okay, average. And if you look at all 4 weeks, the complete league median is 0.175 PPR points per snap. So that is the exact 50 percentile. Half the league is above, half below over the first 4 weeks. Okay. And I show you the average of PPR snaps, and I highlight the top and the bottom just for us to know. And I color coordinated the sad teams: Atlanta, extra sad; Jacksonville, some of these other teams in red are sad. Strong teams are in green, and, right there are in a little bit more olive green. So there's probably not some surprises. Maybe this is stuff you know. And then I'm looking at recent changes, what teams have been improving or declining and you can take a look. Does this mean anything? Is this predictive? Right now, we're just making notes of this. Okay, there it is. So this is really, again, interesting. Again, I'm not worried about players here. I'm trying to set the table for some of these teams. Okay, we know the median. We generated this data, kind of getting a feel for the teams. Then I asked the question, what team percentage or what team performances scoring per snap is above the median or not? And I and then I counted those weeks. So the top would be all 4 weeks a team has hit above league average, not the tops 1. This is the top 16 or better. I sorted by those counts, and this is the teams that every week, or almost every week, at least 3 of the 4 weeks, have brought home the highest scoring per snap, and then the bottom teams. Okay. Atlanta, Cincinnati, New Orleans. They have never had an above median week for the team. That's sad. Look at San Francisco. You're talking about making hay, and they've only had 1 week. Pittsburgh, 1 week. Raiders, 1 week. Rams, 1 week. Jacksonville, 1 week. Chicago, last week. How about that? Carolina, 1 week. I think this metric, this counts over median at the team PPR scoring per snap scoring level, exposes weak teams and stronger teams. So theoretically, one would think stronger teams should have stronger players and probably where we want to spend more time than the weaker players there. And so here it is broken up by the top teams and the bottoms. So nobody's ever done this at the team level. Here it is, folks. Okay? And you're saying, well, what does this mean? This means it sets the landscape for thinking, right? Should I be trying to get players from Seattle, say deep players or whatever, versus New Orleans? I mean, there's a difference in what the team is doing. And it may be the top players are producing. That's fine. But something's not right in the bottom teams. It's just not connecting here. And that should give you concern. Okay? And at the end of the year, we can look back and grade your team. We can look at the teams that your players played from. And maybe that's a way to grade maybe your draft or give you another view of your drafting. Again, is the counts over median team level, is that predictive, early versus late? In other words, will we find these top teams still doing it during the playoffs when we need that? Or is it season to season? Okay, is this a hint these teams are probably going to have a good next season? Or is it just random? We can test that. But you've got to see it first. This is me seeing it. I think it's great. And I visualize, if you just want to see the visual of the difference here. Dallas, Denver, Miami. Denver, how about that? What a surprise. They may, again, this is median. This is not top 10%. This is median. But that shows you that Denver, even though it has a perception, and again, it might be their weak defense, probably the weakest in the league, they got to be doing something on the offense to try to balance out their defense. I will note, being a New Orleans fan, that many years the Saints would have all offense and just poor defense. It's like Sean Payton does that first, gets that offense going, and then works on the defense. So this may be a long-term project. I don't know if he's got the stamina to do it. I mean, he did, but I don't know now with Denver. But that would be interesting if he comes back. Does he work on the defense? Anyway, you can take a look at that. Okay, let's get a little deeper still. Again, we're setting the landscapes here. Team positional above positional median. So I showed you team median of average points per snap, PPR points. I went and figured this out, and I don't know if I figured it out. I'm just not showing you that data, but it's there. I figured out, looked at all the league quarterbacks weeks 1 to 4, running backs, tight ends, wide receivers, figured out the scoring level that was above or below. If it's above, it's in green. If it's below, then it's non-colored. So right away, and then I looked at the 4-week average, and if it's in blue, it's above. If it's in red, it's below. And you're saying, well, what is that telling? Well, it tells you the story. Look at Arizona. Quarterback is carrying the show. The tight ends are not. And the running backs and wide receivers are just average. Look at Baltimore. Running backs, quarterbacks producing. Tight ends, I know Mark Andrews. Hey, I've got him on some teams. It's sad to see that. It's not red, but it's not blue either. Wide receivers. Okay, look at Atlanta. They're not using Pitts and their wide receivers. Look at you can visualize the team's story right now. This data, looking at positional median, gives you the story. Buffalo. Running backs, wide receivers, got nice tight ends, not bringing home the bacon. Underperforming. So you can look at all these. Look at Carolina. Poor Hayden Hurst. Look at it. Sad. Just not doing much. Running backs. Oh, yeah. Sanders, Hubbard. Oh, yeah. They're bringing it home. Chicago. Notice Fields, folks. Fields has been scoring. It's just nobody else has been putting it together yet. Last week, the tight end and wide receiver stepped up. Notice, week 4, the first week where the QB, tight end, and wide receivers were above the league median there. Look at that. They had a +3 that week. Okay, look at Carolina. 0. Cincinnati. Thank goodness for Mixon. They had a +1 week 4. Okay. Cleveland. It's the running backs. And good thing they got Ford, because the quarterbacks and the wide receivers are killing them. Look at that. Dallas. Putting a +2, not bad. The running backs, Tony Pollard's show, and everybody's talking about Ferguson. Well, the tight end as a group is not delivering. Look at Denver. Denver, 4-week average, QB, RB, wide receivers bringing it home. Tight ends, not so much. Detroit, tight ends, not so much. Green Bay, tight ends, not so. So if you ever wonder about tight ends, this data is capturing. tight ends are the weak link in scoring. Always have been. So they have to be treated differently in drafting and lineups and things, waiver wires. This data's screaming that out for me. And again, I'll have the static images. Houston did a +2. Week 3, +3. Week 2, +2. That's not bad. Indy killed it week 2. Everybody was doing it. So if you just kind of count the green, you can kind of get a feel. Look at Jacksonville. +1s at best. Kansas City. Thank goodness for their running backs. I know they got 3 of them, and you're trying to figure out which way. Again, may not help us for fantasy, but it certainly tells the story. Look at Mahomes the last 2 weeks. He's underperforming. So if you drafted Mahomes, you probably hadn't scored as much as you wanted, for sure. Wide receivers are sad at Kansas City. Look at that. It's telling you, and Kelsey is underutilized here. Look at that. Sad. Look at the Chargers. 3 weeks of +3 and +2. Look at the Rams. Look at the Raiders, believe it or not. Look at Miami. So now we're seeing a lot of goodness week per week. Those are some of the stronger teams you want to probably have pieces of. Look at this. So again, you can tell the story. New England, Minnesota, New Orleans even had a few good weeks. Last week was a sad week. The Giants has even had some good weeks. Again, this is above median. This doesn't mean they're going to win or lose the game. This is just tracking the good and the bad. The Giants have quarterback and tight end issues. Poor Waller. Overall, just not putting it together for us. Jets put it together last week. Look at that. They got a +3 last week. Philly +3, 2-2. That's pretty good. Seattle has had a pretty good week too, +2s. So you can follow it like that. Let's see. Here we go. Frisco's been doing pretty good. Tampa Bay, Tennessee. Boy, they have a suck week 3, and they bounce back week 4. King Henry keeps them in the game because the quarterback and the tight ends are not. Boy, Chiggy has been a sadness there. Washington, kind of average, which is not bad compared to other teams which have strong and weak point. Washington just kind of is average up across. So you can really spot the sad teams and, the teams. Look at Atlanta. Is that sad? Baltimore's pretty sad. When you see zeros and +1s, that's not good. So take a look at this data. Start making some notes. See what's going on. Look at pieces of the puzzle on your teams and come back and kind of grade it. What's going on the last few weeks? Is it obvious some of your weaknesses, right? What's going on? What's the problem? Okay. So I think, again, I'm looking at things way different. And, I'm just setting the table for deeper thinking. I don't know how else to approach this. I can't do what everybody else is doing. I have to do it my way. Woo woo. Anyway, part 1's done. Having fun. Take care.